Hello and welcome everyone to the Difference Makers Show. I'm Lynn Sanders, your host and founder of Difference Makers Media, where our mission is to empower, inspire, and motivate you by learning from business leaders who can help you tap into your highest potential. Today's topic is a very intriguing one. It's called Master the Inner Critic, Master Your Inner Critic, Resolve the Root Cause, and Create Prosperity. And if you've ever wondered why you're not able to accomplish the goals that you've envisioned, or you feel stuck and want to know how to move forward and achieve prosperity, then this is the guest you definitely want to meet. Our speaker today is Chris Salem. He's an international speaker, a best-selling author, international best-selling author, and he's also a prosperity coach who can help you change and develop your mindset so you can get to wherever you want to go. I met Chris personally at the CEO Space International Conference a few months ago, and he immediately impressed me with all of his wisdom and his natural warmth. So I know he's a guest you're going to really enjoy today. So in order to help us learn more about overcoming the root cause of whatever is troubling us, let's move forward now by welcoming Chris Salem. Chris, how are you doing today?
Lynn, great. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a great honor to have you here as well. You know, when I first met you, you told me the title of your book. I was very curious. And I want you to start out today, if you don't mind, by, kind of explaining what this means. Master your inner critic, resolve the root cause, and create prosperity. Well, I know what prosperity is, but what does this mean? Master your inner
I'll break down each one because it's kind of a long title there, right?
Right.
So we all have an inner critic, and that inner critic either talks to us positively or negatively. And most of the time, because negativity is a low vibrational energy, most of us humans are conducive to adapting to the negative side of our inner critic, and because it's a low vibrational energy. And as a result of listening to the negative critic, it dictates certain things that we create in our lives to experience those negative emotions over and over again. So the key is how do we really listen to the positive side of your inner critic that you can then create the life and the results that you desire coming from positive emotion. So the next part of the title comes in, resolve the root cause. This is where we're going to resolve the root cause to those barriers that create the negative critic. So again, the inner critic is formed early in childhood, and it's based upon experiences that we have during that time, and it's at that point that our brains become established and then dictate what we do later on as adults. So when we're in childhood, some people could go through traumatic experiences or very subtle experiences in terms of whether it's positive or negative. So a lot of times the root cause ends up being a parent, or it can be parents, it could be a sibling, it could be a teacher, it could be some person that had an impact on you either positively or negatively. But when it comes to the negative critic, it's going to usually be a negative experience. So for instance, for me, my particular issue was anger. And as I was coming out of my teenage years into my early adult years, every day of my life I would experience anger. Whether if I had a smile on my face or not, I had anger. And it was because of unresolved root cause to my father that at the time I was unaware of. So by resolving the root cause to the negative inner critic, we're then able to adopt and find the solution to the positive side of our inner critic to change how we experience what we do in a positive way. So that's what the resolve the root cause does. Now, create prosperity is what it is. You're creating a life that you want to live by. You want a life of purpose, a life that really is your true self, authentic self, and that you're experiencing more or less during the day more positive emotions and not allowing negative emotions to really sideline you. That happens to most of us each and every day and dictates what we create in terms of the situations that allow us to experience those negative emotions every day. So creating the prosperity is a byproduct of living in the solution by resolving the root cause to your negative critic.
Wow, that's very deep. So obviously you learned a lot in your own experience, as you mentioned briefly, about having a negative and angry father, and then you carry this anger with you. I'd like you to be willing to share some of your personal story, because we all learn through our stories. We can choose to make changes or not, but you have taken your learning to a great higher level by helping others through their own problems and challenges. So could you tell us how you got to where you are today?
Well,
And
absolutely.
what challenges you faced yourself?
Well, transparency is a key part of healing and success in this area, being transparent where you came from. And for me, growing up, I had a father that was really not present in my life. He was there, but not emotionally available. And also physically was not there. So he would be traveling overseas most of the time. So his way of bonding, so to speak, with his sons was to provide material things. Like, here's a bike, here's a motorcycle, here's a brand new baseball glove, but I don't have time for you guys, or I don't have time to come to your game. I'm busy working. So at the time, as you're a child, you don't really understand what that all means. You just know that your father is not there. And while you're at a game and all the other dads are rooting for their sons, you don't have that happening for you. So you have your mother acting as the father figure there, trying to be there for you. So at the time, I didn't seem to think that it bothered me. But growing up, I began to experience anger at the age of 13 that carried on well into my early adult years, up until the point I was 31 years old. And my anger was very extreme. So I listened to loud music, I rebelled, I would get into certain behaviors and habits that would cause harm to other people, not in a physical way, but would hurt them emotionally. And at the time, it was just a way to kind of offset the way I felt. I wasn't putting those other people's feelings ahead to understand how they would react to it, because I was caught up in my own drama and my own stuff. And as a result of coming out of that into my adulthood, I did adopt the same types of characteristics my father had. He was a very hard worker. He was successful, and I had that trait. And I also obviously had the positive traits of my mother, who was very good with people and put people first. And I also had that as well. But however, because I was all about, trying to be, have my father notice me, I pursued a career that I thought my father would appreciate. And I began to make a lot of money, even at a young age, more than, say, more kids or young adults that were making at that time. But I worked very hard. But the way I was going was I was working hard and I was playing hard. And because of the anger, I adopted certain types of behaviors and habits that became addictive. I got involved in recreational drug use, drinking. I had a sexual addiction, an eating addiction. And as a result of it, it was like all or nothing. And these habits and behaviors almost killed me twice, where one was from alcohol poisoning and another was from a drug overdose. And as a result of that, I didn't really see why I was doing these things until I hit rock bottom at the age of 31. And that was the turning point where I began to say that I am not a victim, and that I have to take ownership that I've created this. And when I adopted this principle that you see in the book, this is just a process that was put together by blends of Eastern meditation, a 12-step program, and kind of pulled it all together to make my own process that worked for me and has worked for clients that I've consulted with over the last few years. So for me, it was about being aware that I have to take ownership for my own life, that I'm not the victim, and that I have to be the solution. I have to go within to be the solution to how I want to create my life. But before I can do that, I had to resolve the root cause from the past to that particular issue with my father.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to pause for a moment, because you obviously went through a lot of learning. You said from age 13 to 31, you were going through this process of dealing with your anger till you got to the bottom. And then you learned how to come to understanding your root cause. So could you dig a little deeper now for us to share how a person can come up with the root cause? Because that seems to be key to make change happen.
Absolutely. Well, the first step is being aware. A lot of us are not aware of what we do and why we do things, and then wonder why things that happen negatively to us, and we end up playing the victim role. So the key is to be aware that things that do happen to you, you have a part in. Now, sometimes tragic things happen to people, and some people might say, I never asked for this. And you're right. Some bad things happen, and yes, you did not ask for that. However, on some level, there was what you're experiencing in terms of negative emotions would have attracted that situation. So I'm not saying it's your fault, but yet on some level there is a part that you have played. So if somebody were raped or mugged or something along those lines, yes, again, don't blame yourself, but yet know that on some level that there was something that you had a part based upon what you were experiencing to attract that. So I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but nonetheless, it is the truth. I had things happen to me that triggered my anger because I was creating that anger, and I would bring those situations to experience it over and over. So first step is to be aware. The next is to dig deep to recognize where the root cause is. Is it your father, your mother, or both, a sibling? And the way to do that is to really learn how to be in the moment, and that is through meditation. Now, meditation could come in many different forms. It doesn't mean you have to sit, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. That's how I do it. It could be moving meditation, just walking and being in the moment while you're walking. It could be Tai Chi. It could be tapping. Whatever works for you to get clear, to get your mind settled, to defrag the mind. And when you're able to do that, the problem will reveal itself. You'll begin to know where the root cause is, separated from the other causes that cause problems. Then once you identify the root cause, the next step is to truly release it. And that's to accept what is, to release it and move forward. So in my case, I was able to accept my father for who he was. He couldn't be the father that I desired him to be because he didn't know better. He had a father that was emotionally unavailable, that was not there for him. My father had no clue what to do. So once I was able to really accept that and forgive him, not just for him, but most importantly for myself, that I was able to truly release it, but in turn then release the anger associated with that. Now, does that mean I never experienced anger anytime after that? Of course not. But the anger is very far and few between. And when it does trigger, when I feel anger come on, it goes away within a few minutes.
Because you know how to release it.
You know how to release it and get back onto the positive side of your inner critic. So you don't get consumed in the negative emotion as I used to every day of my life.
Right. So you retrained yourself. And what I really like about this book is you go into some depth here about the steps that you've created, the 7 steps to mastering your inner critic. So there's a lot of content here and a lot that you share with people in talks that are longer than our interview. But if you could give us the highlights of those 7 steps, I think that would be really helpful for people.
Absolutely. Well, there's 7 steps, but I'll cover 3 of them. And just before I cover 3, there is another component to resolving the root cause, and that is also taking your moral inventory with the meditation. So that is ongoing, writing down what is going on, how you feel. Because when you're able to really track that on a day-to-day basis, you'll begin to see that the negative emotions that you have experienced as a result of the root cause will get far and few between once you truly release it. Now, when you still experience those emotions on a frequent basis, those negative emotions, that means you didn't truly release the root cause. So you still have work to do. This is a process. It takes time. It could be a few months. It could be 2 years and anywhere in between. But resolving the root cause is the first step that we're talking about here. That is most important. You can't go to the other steps until you've done this. The steps work in sequence of one another. So you can't skip to one step and then go back. So the root cause is going to be able to clean the slate, to give you that clarity. Because once the problem is resolved, we begin to see the solution. And once we begin to see the solution, now we're able to move forward and step out of our comfort zone to embrace that change, to move forward. So one of the other key steps here, I'm going to talk about 3 out of the 4.
Can I stop you for just a second,
Sure.
Chris? That was really interesting. So let's say you notice that you or someone you love is in a negative cycle, and they continue going over and over and over these negative emotions. How does someone really determine that they've overcome the root cause? Let's say they've identified it. How do you
You've
know?
identified it when that negative emotion or negative emotions is not persistent each and every day. That it's like far and few between here and there. And then when it does come up, it's only there for a very short period of time, not even a day. It could be just for an hour. It could be for a few minutes. So I'll give you an example.
Yes.
Before I resolved my root cause, if somebody were to cut me off in traffic, I would go into road rage. And that anger would last all day long. I would carry it with me all day. Sometimes it could be a few days.
Wow.
Now, it wasn't the person that cut me off. That triggered it. But yet the root cause is what I was angry about was my father. So it wasn't the person that actually cut me off. However, I used that it was the person that cut me off. But when that happens again, when you've resolved the root cause, you don't feel it come on like very strong. It's for a fleeting moment, and then it goes away and you let it go. And you're right back into where you are in the moment, in a peaceful state, ready to take on your day in a positive way. So that's when you recognize when you've actually resolved the root cause.
And that's through doing what you mentioned earlier, taking an inventory of yourself and doing meditation, walking in nature, and feeling that peace inside of you.
Yeah, being in the moment and taking more limits. So this is a process, and it's something that you don't want to become complacent. It's something that you want to make part of your life every day for the rest of your life.
Every day. Wow, that's the key. Repetition. All right, so let's move forward then. What happens after hopefully you've decided, or you've had help, a coach, deciding that you've overcome the root cause?
Well, once you've stepped out, once you resolve the root cause, okay, and you go into a few other steps, which is embracing change, stepping out of your fear, getting to know what your true why and your purpose is. So once you're able to identify who your true authentic self is, we now move into the next really important phase that I like to talk about, and that is really setting a roadmap or plan for the rest of your life. Not only your business, but your personal life as well. And what I mean by that is you have to be very specific with not only your thoughts, but with your words and writing them down. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down your long-term goal for your life and your business. And then we're going to then break it down into smaller, attainable daily goals that will roll up weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually, to a set time that you want to achieve that. The problem I see with goal setting is that people are very vague. They'll have a goal, a long-term goal, they'll break it down into a few bullet points, but they rarely execute at 100% with that, is because the goal becomes overwhelming. It triggers the stress, the anxiety, which now is stemmed from the past. They get the anxiety because they're projecting something in the future. And then what happens as a result of that, they procrastinate. But when you break it down into smaller attainable goals that are achievable, and knowing that you don't have to do everything all at once and doing it over time, because this is a process, you're going to see that it's all going to start to come together, that you'll be able to achieve that long-term goal. But you got to be able to map everything out. It's like with anything, you can't shoot from the hip. You got to have a roadmap, and it's got to be very detailed. So that is an important step. And then I like to use the SMART principle, being specific, measurable, accountable, that type of thing. You want to be able to make sure that each of those daily goals, that you have a time slot that you have to achieve that. And if you get sidelined by day-to-day life, just get right back to where you started, finish, and then move forward. Don't skip and move forward until you finish the task beforehand.
I would think with all of these goals, it would be very helpful to have a coach or accountability partner or someone to help you along the way, because it's very, I think, easy to get sidetracked and not follow through. Would you agree?
I agree. And that's where the final step of the 7-step process, it's accountability. And accountability, it plays a part in every step of this process, all 7 steps. But the reason why I have step 7 being accountable as the last step is that the accountability doesn't end when you've completed all the 7 steps. The accountability is for the rest of your life. So I'm part of 2 accountability groups personally that I've been involved in on and off for several years in many different groups. So even as a coach and as a consultant, I have to be accountable. I'm a human being just like everybody else. I'm not superhuman, and I have to be accountable, because if I become complacent, I can end up going right back to where I started. However, because I've been doing this a long time and I'm conditioned to the positive side, it would take a little longer time for that to happen, but I never become complacent. So it's very important that accountability is the glue that makes this all stick, and that the accountability now becomes part of your daily habits, your behaviors, and your disciplines to fulfill exactly how you want your life to unfold, as well as your business.
I like that so much. I think people, I don't know about others, but I tend to put people on pedestals. When you're out there and you have the admiration and the knowledge, and people tend to think, well, that person knows everything. But what you're saying is you're always learning, you're always growing, and even those at the top of their field, even the Michael Jordans, are going to have a coach to help them get better, right?
We all need coaches. We're all teachers and we're students at the same time. And if anybody does not follow that philosophy, then life's going to happen. They're going to re-experience certain things that are going to work against them. We have to be open-minded. We're all teachable, and we all serve a purpose for other people as teachers, and then we're students where somebody else is teaching us.
You also mentioned a term. You've coined a word, prosperous, to get to the root cause of limiting patterns in business and personal life. So could you explain what is prosperous all about? How do we achieve that?
This is a term that actually came to me in the middle of the night. It woke me up out of a dead sleep, and it was so powerful that I remember when I woke up, I was fully awake. I got out of bed and I said, I got to write this down. And I went and I wrote it down, and I thought I was going to go back to bed, but I ended up staying up, and I ended up researching and finding that there was no term that was being used of prosperous. There's prosper and then there's entrepreneur. So I ended up trademarking the name, and the whole idea of what prosperous means is that you don't have to be an entrepreneur in itself to be a prosperous. Prosperous means it's an individual that puts their wellness first, so that if it's in alignment with their wealth, and when I say wealth, it's not just your money and building, with material things, but also knowing that you have wealth with, serving your true purpose, having freedom to live a life on your terms, spending time with your significant others, your family, building thriving relationships. That's the wealth side. The wellness side is the 8 pillars of wellness, addressing your emotional wellness, your physical wellness, your social wellness, your financial wellness, your intellectual wellness, occupational, environmental. And when you have that in equal alignment, doesn't have to be perfect, but when it's in alignment, that's when you can truly experience prosperity and live a life as a prosperous.
That's great. I think more people could benefit from that, because I think many of us are just putting in time at jobs or not really happy with what they're doing. And what you're saying too is prosperity is not just the money. It's the health and positive relationships with people, the whole health. One thing I thought was very interesting in your book is you talk about people who are operating in the effects of their life. What does that mean?
Well, I mean, I would say that 99% of us fall victim to that. That when we talk about the effect of the cause, that means that we live in a society where we manage the effect of the problem. So if you look at people that are sick or maybe have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, what do? They take a pharmaceutical medication that manages the effect. Does it solve the problem? No, it doesn't. We buy a car. Is the car going to be sustainable for the rest of our lives? No, we're going to have to take it into service, and we're going to be managing the effect of certain situations with that vehicle until it eventually reaches the end of its life cycle. So what I try to show people, what I do with people, is to recognize that there are great products and services out there that can serve as components, but they are not going to be the solution to your problem. The only solution to your problem rests with you. The problem and the solution are inside of you, and only you can be the total solution. There can be components that can help. So the key is that instead of living your life managing the effect, managing the problem, let's solve the problem and operate and live in the solution. And the same case can be said for companies. It's the same principle. A lot of companies manage the effect. They don't operate in the solution. So the key for sustainable success and living a life of true prosperity is operating from the solution and not managing the effect. So that's what that means.
And it takes obviously a lot more time and thought, like versus just popping an aspirin when you have pain versus finding out, well, what's the root cause of the pain? And I think our society wants to have everything done quickly, fast food, without coming to the root.
It's a short-term fix. People want a short-term solution. And that's why marketers are very clever. They know they can capitalize on people. They want things now. And here's a solution in a box that's going to solve all your problems. But in reality, when you look at it, did it really solve my problem? No. Did it help? Yeah, it helped, but it didn't solve my problem. The key is a lot of the things that we desire in our life, or the solution in itself, we can do ourselves. And knowing that it's not going to be overnight, it's a process. Any successful venture is a process. Because as the late Jim Rohn coined, you know, success is not the final destination. It's what you become in the process. And what you become in the process is you have gratitude. And when you have gratitude as a result, you are going to appreciate every fruit of your efforts that comes from that.
Beautiful. So before we end, I have a couple last questions. You know, we're all dealing with lots of things in our lives, especially it seems like with technology, it's just accelerated. How would you recommend people achieve balance as they go through their lives?
Well, what I would say the key is to learn to become in the moment. You know, learn to do meditation 15 minutes in the morning when you first wake up. Another thing that's very important is to make your bed. And a lot of people ask me why. I'm not, you know, were you in the military? I said no. But it was a concept that I learned a long time ago when I was going through the 12-step program. When you make your bed as a first priority in the morning, it triggers something in the brain to, when you're doing other things, that you're going to be organized and you're going to do everything where you tackle one task at a time, and you're not going to be multitasking. And coupled with the meditation, it gets your day started off the right foot. Then another thing I recommend is that people really get specific with their goal setting and their plan, breaking everything out with daily attainable goals. And you work in intervals of 50 minutes at a clip, taking 10-minute breaks in between to recharge, get in the moment, so you can then refocus on the next task. Do not move on to the next task until you finish the first one. Now, the first one may not happen right away, but you might say, okay, I got this phase of it done, I'm moving on to the next tomorrow, and then the next day, and so forth. So the key is to work in intervals of 50 minutes. You want to put your wellness in, so to carve out time to work out, take a brisk walk, eat a well-balanced diet with protein, carbs, and vegetables no bigger than the palm of your hand. Cage-free, minimally processed. That's a general rule of thumb. So put your wellness first. You get organized, plan specifically, meditate, and take your moral inventory daily. That is the key to living a balanced life that is going to basically manifest other people to do the same that are around you.
Wow. You know, it seems so simple, but it makes so much sense what you just said. Make your bed. And I made mine today, and I usually do, but I never really thought about it in terms of how it makes you feel organized. Because what you're saying is everything you do creates an impression in your mind, which then extends out throughout your whole day and ultimately your whole life. You give so many great tips. So if you had to summarize what you'd like people to remember from this conversation today, what would you say?
Well, it's just simply what we talked about today. The key is that everybody deserves to have a life of prosperity. You deserve to have the life that resembles your true self. The only way that is going to happen is living in the solution rather than the effect. Put your wellness first. That includes your emotional wellness. Resolve the root cause, look for the solution, and then live a balanced life with a game plan intact to follow, that you could achieve everything that you want, both in your professional career, with your family life, your personal life, and with your wellness overall.
Wow, it sounds so great. Well, I would think that after listening to this, people will want to know how to reach you to learn more. So could you tell us how they can get in touch with you, Chris?
Yes, they can get in touch with me from my website at Christopher with a C-H. So it's Christopher Salem, SALEM.com. Or you can reach me by email at chris@christophersalem.com.
Excellent. You know, I really thank you, Chris. Every time you talk, I just feel like I get more learning from you. And I know my husband has really appreciated learning from you and others all along the way. So I would recommend everyone take a listen to what Chris has to say. Get his book, Master Your Inner Critic, Resolve the Root Cause, Create Prosperity, and check out his website, which is going to give you a wealth of information. Thank you again, Chris. It has been a real treat. And Roland, thank you for being in our background, helping our administration of this program. And I wish you all a wonderful day to get to the root cause and live a happy, prosperous life. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Chris. Bye-bye.